Welcome, everybody. As always, super grateful to share this next hour with you. There's Jesse and Carrie. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to pass you on to the panel as well. So, as always, I am E. I'm rejoined by my cosmic sister, Rhonda Smith. Always super excited.
Wow, that's cool.
The Cosmic Smith is in the house.
The Cosmic Smith is in the house.
You let her
So-
on? Whoa.
I know, right? Yeah. We'll
I would-
see. We'll see if that was a good idea or not. We'll
Yeah.
decide.
They wouldn't let me on.
So always grateful to see Carrie, Renee, Donnie, which is now a newfound member of this masterclass, which I appreciate. Jesse, thank you for coming, man. So what we're talking about this week is when is enough enough, right? And I think I just came from a Tony Robbins weekend, that first UPW, is his very first event. And talking about a room that I don't know that knows what enough is, with all the priming and yes or yes and so on and so forth. So I wanted to kind of begin this week a little bit different and kind of sharing my own journey in life and in my what's enough kind of journey, and what happens when you continuously kind of, or at least what happened for me when you continuously push forward and don't acknowledge what your body is saying or what your mind is saying. So a couple of years ago, I decided that 2016 was going to be the year of the Iron, right? So I was going to do Ironman. I was going to become an Ironman. I was out of shape and lacked integrity around my training because I didn't enjoy it. Ron and I were coaching together at the time, and I expressed multiple times how much I wasn't enjoying it. And Rhonda kept expressing to me that, like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And I was just like, no, I have to do this. You know, my mind is strong, so I can do this. And
he fired me.
yes, I fired her, but I completely lacked integrity. So I didn't even have the balls to actually fire her. So I just completely stopped responding to her, which is a whole other story, right? But so I keep going, I keep training, keep lacking integrity around my training, but my head is so strong that I'm gonna do this, right? So the day of my full Ironman comes, 140 plus miles. Takes me 15 hours and 52 minutes to do it, right? And I'm going through it, and the whole day I keep repeating to myself, my body is strong, my mind is strong. Tonight I'm gonna be an Ironman. And if you guys know how an Ironman race kind of ends, you get to the ending part, and there's all these people clapping, and the guy says, "Emmanuel Pani, you are an Ironman." And everybody's clapping, and I pass through this thing, and there's the time, and I jump up and I knock the time, and then I walk through, put my medal on, and I walk through the medical tent. And by the time I'm out of the medical tent, I feel absolutely nothing. Nothing. No sense of accomplishment, no sense of joy, no sense of I'm fucking awesome, zero. Except now, like, little by little, it's like humongous pain, like everywhere in my body. And long story short, 6 months later, my body kind of like presented me with the bill. Ended up herniating 2 discs in my lower back, ended up not walking for a month. So that leads me into this conversation, which is, when is enough enough, right? Like, when are our goals, and when are our ambitions, and when are we just existing, following other people's goals and other people's dreams? So we're never enough, but we're always living somebody else's reality anyways. So I'll kind of open the floor now that I've kind of set the stage.
I think that for me, it was really trying to be seen by my mentors and peers and by coaches and people of influence, that I'd done the work and I'd worked really hard, and I still wasn't being seen. And like, there were a couple of people, a mentor that owns a big nonprofit, who I was just like, what the hell? Like, no matter what I do, you're not seeing me this way. You're still seeing me who I used to be. And I think that was a really big point and pivot in my life, was when like nothing was working. Like nothing was, I had done all the personal development. I had done all the things. I had gone to copious plant medicine ceremonies, like trying to find the thing that made me finally feel or be enough. And it really took this like deep gaping hole in me of not being enough to finally say, I don't want to do it this way anymore. And that's when I literally reached out to Jesse that day and said, I want to write a book. And everybody's like, you're crazy. You don't even like to read books. Which is okay. But and I had to follow my own path, and I had to find my own way. And for me, it was like becoming enough for myself. And then the irony in all that is then like all the people, when I stopped needing the people to see me, when I stopped needing to be enough, they saw me. And then I didn't need it anymore. Right? So I encourage you to share, like, we all get to that pivotal point, and you know, we're all on this hamster wheel trying to get to enough, and like trying to get to there and trying to figure it out, and like there is no there, you know. It's so, and it's enough with money. Like everyone's like, I got to make a whole bunch of money to be able to have enough so that I can help all these people. Well, you know, my teacher always says, what if you just have enough money? What does that even look like? Right? An extra $1,000 a month. Think about that. One extra $1,000 a month. That could be enough. We don't have to make $10 million. So it's like this endless quest to be more, and to think that we need to find ourselves. That's the ultimate not enough, which you're not lost. We're just simply, we have forgotten, right?
Yeah. Find ourselves. Also heal ourselves, right? I think that's the enough part also. Go for it, Jesse. Are you
just
unmuted?
to carry on
there.
from that conversation thread, I find it's interesting in my line of work, people usually wind up, or I usually wind up in conversation with people when they've either reached a tipping point, and it's interesting, I didn't actually know, or maybe I forgot that Rhonda had shared that with me previously, or we've reached that tipping point before the book comes out. But it's like,
which happened again.
yeah, it's this great sort of crucible or pressure cooker to expose whatever's under the surface or whatever's ripe for change. And that's something that I appreciate. But on the topic of like, what is enough? I've really started thinking about what are the things that I can do that is an end in and of itself. I spend time in my garden and then I get to eat fruit. That's an end in and of itself. There is no externality involved. Of course, you have to own a house and have a garden, but the act of doing that and so forth is one act that I really love. That's an end in and of itself. And I'm in a season of pruning. You know, fall is harvest season, but in life, I'm constantly thinking, what can I let go of? And what not even isn't working, but what isn't ideal. And Rhonda and I had this conversation yesterday. I was like, if you have a cup that's full or overflowing, you can't add anything to that, even if it's better than everything that's in there. So I try and embody that by like, what can I let go of to create space? And then be amused and surprised with what shows up.
So when did that happen, Jesse? Like, when did that change? Or was that always the case? You know what I mean? Like, were you one of those people that was always able to like take things off their plate, or
no, I'm horrible at like firing people. Or one time I told somebody that I no longer believed in them, and I felt agony afterwards. So like, I'm not good at letting go necessarily, or telling people that they're not good enough or any variation thereof. So like earlier this year, coinciding with doing ceremony with Rhonda, I sort of reached a tipping point with my team and the way I had my business structured. And there was an exodus of people from my company that left me spinning, and just sort of managing through that and reconstituting how I do things in a way that's sustainable and enjoyable, and that I always counterbalance work with relaxation or something else. It's like, for me, one of my biggest fears is burning out. I just won't do it. I won't even let myself get close to physical burnout, because I've actually gotten very close, maybe even been there once or twice, and it's horrible. It's not good for your health. It's, forget about like service to other people if you like can barely manage your own body's energy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I go through almost each year some point where something's got to change and it's no longer really up for discussion. It's like, all right, this is happening. So
it's almost like life, kind of very similar to me, right? And kind of like already finding team is like life sooner or later will let you know that the bill is due.
I would believe that the results never lie. So if I'm talking to someone like, oh, I'm so relaxed, life's so good, but also there's like financial stress and there's relationship issues that introduce drama. It's like, those are the results and they never lie. So, you know, I can look at those in my own life and think, am I deluding myself by saying everything's so great if I'm stressed about something, or there's somebody I'm avoiding talking to, or I feel out of integrity with something else? So, but the opposite is true too. Like when I feel like I am in alignment and flow, amazing results appear, and it feels effortless. And I think that's the real distinction. Instead of like, oh, I've got to do more and work harder to accomplish this thing that may or may not really be what I should be doing. Whereas like, and like Rhonda said as well, when she no longer needed or wanted the validation, it came, and then it didn't actually matter anyway. So how crazy is that, right? So it's kind of a variation on that theme.
Well, then that it's what drives us. Like when we live from our wounds and our needs from the wounds, and like everybody out there is talking about, you should have all that you desire. Well, like that's coming from a place of wounding. When you truly have done some healing and that, like you need so much less. Like I became a coach because I wanted significance and I wanted people to see me and I wanted to have value and I wanted to offer transformation for people. And now like that I've done so much healing in my own codependency, like I don't have the same need from my clients, and like I don't need to coach them in the same way. And it's the irony of that, right? And you know, when we have this like driving, say yes and figure it out later, and all the things that we're doing to like become, that whole idea of becoming, we're like in this like leaning forward, we're making things happen, we're so driven on the goal, and like we don't even know where the hell we're headed. Lean back. My very first plant medicine ceremony was that. It was like, the medicine isn't working. And she's like, lean back. And I went back to my mat, and as soon as I leaned back, like the whole thing exploded for me, right? Like, and it's the whole thing in my life is receive. Learn how to receive.
I love that. So I see some heads kind of moving. Renee, Carrie.
Well, and I really like the part where Jesse said, you know, sustainability. I think that's a huge piece, for me anyway, that I've always felt like I've carried, well, my name's Carrie. It's actually frickin' Sparkling Joy, or Sparkling Jewel, sorry. But Sparkling Jewel. But my name is Carrie, and I've carried so much shit and everybody else's shit and everybody's burdens, trying to make people happy and trying to get everything done for my husband, my kids, my family, you know, and try and be the person they all wanted me to be. And, you know, it wound me up in ICU and sick and, you know, for a couple years. And even when I came out of that, you know, without my husband at the time, and just with my kids, I mean, it was 1 against 4. It was a big ratio. So I continued to have to really push, but I learned a few things at that point. And a couple of them were, I learned I had to join like a group to have a writing a horseback riding appointment once a month to do something for myself. So I did little things like that to kind of come back into myself. And now, and then it's funny because you get kind of caught back up into things, and you end up, I ended up, you know, spinning again, way too much on my plate, way too many things. Not everything was in integrity, but it for sure wasn't sustainable. So unless I keep an eye on what is truly sustainable, which right now I'm looking at my property going, I need somebody to help me. So I'm working on setting up a WOOF program. So maybe I can come get some people to come stay at my place and help get my crap together, get my garden going, get my yard stuff. But I struggle because I look at, okay, so I want to get my garden done and I want to get my arena done and I'm setting up this business. Okay, but what is enough? So I go back and forth in this like pulley of what do I really need? You know, and I was thinking, like, I live in the middle of the country and I have neighbors within, you know, not too far. You know, we're all on like 10 acre parcels. So we have neighbors. But I think about the old days, like they had one saw and everybody shared it on the block or the, you know, the area. Nowadays, you have to buy your own freaking saw because nobody wants to share their saw with you. So to me, that's not sustainable. I want to be around people that can be in that group where we don't need all those things. We can share and exchange and help each other. But our world isn't that way so much anymore. It's hard to find people like that. So it costs a lot of money to live on property. I have to have my own tractor. I have to have my own, you know, welder. I have to have my own air compressor. I have to, you know, to function on a ranch. So it's kind of interesting trying to figure out that enough piece. And I've always come from my past with a unworthiness and a lack area. And I am struggling monetarily right now, but I don't feel it the same as I used to. And I think that's one of my things that's really shifted over the last like 6 months to a year is that, yes, I still have this lack, but I don't feel like it's a lack of me. Yeah. Okay. So the money hasn't come yet. Things are working. But when I really look at it, the money that is enough to get certain things done shows up if I'm not so stressed about it. But yeah, I don't know if this is making sense. I feel like I'm going in a little hamster wheel.
you're actually going in a lot of direction, but you're saying a lot of things that, at least to me, feel very interesting, right? Like one of the first things that you said that is like, in the society where we live now, we each have to have our own things because we can't share.
Yeah.
Right. So it's this society that kind of like reinforces kind of like programming of I am separate than you.
Yep.
So I need to stay. And like one of the greatest books that I read in this kind of like last couple of years has been Radical Wholeness, right? And it just kind of talks about this whole feeling of like we have to hide behind the white picket fence in the big house. And then obviously if you have the big house and the white picket fence, you can be going to Carrie's house and ask her, can I borrow this all?
Yeah.
Shit, you're in your big house with a big picket fence. So you gotta kind of you gotta stay on your side of shit now, you know what I mean?
But but I don't, that does not sit with integrity with me. That's not right in my book. I mean, it's like a waste of our universe. Why do we need freaking 20 saws on one road, you know, that people are going to use for a couple of years, or maybe they use it once and then they don't use it again for 2 years, or never. They buy it because they have to have it and then they never use it. It's like, what a waste of the environment and money and energy and space.
I think that the recycling piece, because like the problem is that we all make enough money or too much money, because then we just have like, you know, too many blenders or too many of the latest gadget, which is all electronics, and then we have to recycle it and we have to figure out where it goes, and too many computers and too many things. Like this is a thing. And again, like we all have our things. Like there will be things that Jesse's like, I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving it up. And me too, right? Like we'll all have our things, but like there is that conversation of like beyond our own enough. And then there's an enough number of like understanding what we need to make financially rather than this quest of like something bigger, but humanity's enough, right? And like figuring out that line of like what we're actually doing and what's actually happening here. That's the one of the biggest problems, because there's so many people, so much weight that Christmas is coming, right? This whole idea of Christmas and all these presents and all this wrapping paper and all these ribbons and all this shit, so that we can feel accepted in this day, that we were able to financially afford to buy gifts that we would never buy people, the things that they don't really need or they should buy themselves. And like, what is that? What is this? Like, that's
and people you don't fucking like most of the time. Right? Like it's the presence of like, you have to go through the list of people that you have, and then you're like, this person I really don't want to give them a present, like, but you have to.
Right,
Right?
but like,
So
if there's somebody you want to buy something for, there's something you want to do. Yeah, awesome. That's amazing. But like, we need to think about how we're doing these things.
Yeah. What about, well, and I didn't have a lot of money raising my kids, so we didn't have a lot of Christmas presents, for to say like presents, but we did start a process that we would give each other like little books of things we would do together. And to me, that is so much better anyway. And I'm like, I make pepper jelly. That's all everybody gets for Christmas. Because I have pomegranate trees and, you know, and I grow peppers. But yeah, I always told the people, unless you're going to buy my kid a book, don't buy him anything. You know, take them somewhere, do an experience, have them over for, you know, to color or to paint your bedroom or something, to spend that time with somebody. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all the stuff. But then again, I am in a purge process where I just, you know, got rid of a whole trailer load of stuff out of my house. I don't want the stuff. Even so.
It's definitely a thing. Well, like where in your lives do you struggle with having like maybe the one thing that you have maybe too much of? So we all probably have a thing. What's your thing? What's your too much thing? How many? What do you have too much of? I can tell you I have too many blankets. I have a blanket thing. Like I want to keep everybody warm, but I just keep buying more because of ceremony, or like, and someone might be cold, or like it's fuzzy. It's like super extra, right? Like I don't need all this stuff. Like, you know,
I'm grateful. So please, you can start working on something else first. Don't take away the blankets.
I use the hell out of those blankets too. I'm always
same.
cold.
Same. Let's start with something else. I'm sure there's something else we can start from.
So, you know, what's one thing in your life that maybe there's too much of, and it's okay. It's okay to have too much of something, right? But like, where is that area for you?
Yeah, I think one of my areas is like taking classes and reading books. And I'm still on that little bit of a hamster. And it's not necessarily, I don't even know if it's that like I don't have enough. I just have like an unsatiable, or whatever that word is. I can't fill it enough of learning. I just really like to learn. But I do so many different things that it's hard to determine which direction to go to be on my path. I don't always stop and think about that piece.
Yeah, well, I had a similar thing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I had a similar thing when it came to learning, but to me, what I realized and what I went on my learning fast. So the Tony Robbins thing is funny because about a year and a half after my 1 month podcast fast kind of began. So at the beginning of 2018, Rhonda was like, okay, you need to take a break. Because in 2017, I literally listened to 1 or 2 podcasts a day. And I had to keep notes of everything and say what did I learn from everything, and what was my aha from everything that I learned. And it was just this constant thing. And then I realized that like every bit of information that I was consuming was going in my mind to how can I become more or better, or what is the next version of me. So there wasn't like an interest of a specific topic that I wanted. I just wanted a feeling of like being enough. was almost to the point that like, if I learn enough shit, people will respect me. People will think I'm smart enough. People will think I'm interesting, right? And really owning to the fact that like you have all your own knowledge and your own experience. And that's really what people want. They don't want you to just keep repeating things that they've already read anyways. And then you come and you're like, let me tell you something. But like, it's not necessary, you know? But I also realize that a lot of the times I do fall into doing things to make me feel like my being is enough. And then I just keep doing them and doing them and doing them. And in the process, I accumulate more and more things when all I needed was kind of like a moment of me with me, looking at myself in the mirror and just being like, I see you, you know, you're enough. You're enough as you are. You don't need a shirt that fits you better. You don't need any of that. You don't need a book to make you more interesting or more intelligent. You just need to be with you.
Well, and that's so fascinating because we have all the information inside and like we do, but sometimes we need to be reminded of how to like connect in. So like a teacher, a mentor, a medicine person, whatever that looks like for people, right? But like there is that point, you know, Ian and I were talking about like how many courses we've bought that we've never opened that are in our email. And like how many amazing things Jesse has sent me. And he's like, you totally have to watch this, which I know it's gold, but I haven't watched it. Just calling myself out. You look at his eyes. But like, right?
Jesse's
like,
shook right now.
I know. Yeah. But it's like, holy shit, we're so full. We're so full. And it really is about learning how to like stop that. You know, we sit down at the table of truth with our big ass spoon and we're like, feed me. And we just eat and we gorge all this knowledge. You should read this book and you should know this book and you should do this and you should do this. And there's a method for that. I remember when I wrote the book, people were like, oh, you're writing, that's a really big title. Wow, the whole method. You must have a really great method to help us figure this out. I'm like, actually, the book is about not having a method. The book is about creating your own. And they're like, what? What does that even mean? Like, what am I going to do with that? Right? Like, so it's fascinating how programmed we are into believing that it's more when, you know, my teacher always goes, oh man, that sounds like you're going through it, man. You should go take a walk and sit under an apple tree. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, why don't you go eat an apple? He's like, what else do you need? It's all right there, sister. Like, go, right?
I think one of the simple solutions to over consuming information is if you just create some rule, like 1 hour of consumption, 1 hour of action or integration. So like if you listen to a podcast, cool. Spend an hour implementing something or doing what was suggested, at least. I've had friends that have done like a 1-to-5 ratio or more. Where it's like, okay, if you're going to spend an hour learning something new, then 5 hours or more of implementing.
I love that. That's such a good advice, because then you can see what makes a difference, you know. And I think that's the thing, right? And I realized again after this event, I'm looking at this book of notes and I'm like, I'm gonna read them, right? I'm gonna reread my notes, and I'm like, when is the last time that I've went to a personal development weekend and I actually reread these fucking notes that I took? That's never happened. I have books and books of notes from events, and I realized that I've never reread them. So point one is like, if I already know I'm not going to reread them, what the fuck are you taking notes for? You might as well just sit down and be present the whole time. Or if you are taking notes, then read them and implement.
Well, it's just like, don't read a book a week. Don't read a book a month. Read 2 books in a year, or read 1 book in a year, right? Study the book. This book is like 100 pages and you can study this book. You don't have to read it. It's not meant to be read. It's meant to be studied. Same with this book. This book is meant to be studied. It's not meant to be read. Sorry, I'm going to plug my own book, but Jesse's other calls, I have to. But
Rhonda, you once recommended that we buy the Tao Te Ching and read it. And I got the book, and within about 2 days, I was so excited because I said, Rhonda, I read the book, the whole book. And you're like, Johnny, not a book you read. It's a book you study.
She said,
And that-
Donnie, I'm still on page 1. And you're like,
I'm
oh
still
shit.
on page
You're
1.
like, oh shit, I did this wrong.
Yeah. And it's like, I started studying page 1, and I studied it for maybe 6 months to when I felt, I was like, I just thought of like, I get it. You don't get it. It's really hard. I'm not really sure if I get it or not, but I feel called to read page 2 now. And I've been studying page 2, and man, this is it's been a doozy. It's been fun reading it once a week or so, and then just constantly reminding myself of like, how does the teachings apply to where I am right now?
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
just I'm on page 2.
That's awesome.
I've been on
Renee,
page
what's your perspective? I know that you receive and give information in probably a different way than some of the people on this call. And you're enough. What does enough look like in your world?
Well, it's been up big time. And 2 weeks ago, I tried to live without anything. And by the way, I have very small amounts of everything. I don't have too much of anything other than other people's opinions of how I should be living my life. And the fact that I care about shit that doesn't even matter. I've been purging, clear cutting, chronic complainers, parasites, people addicted to not self-sourcing, not self-regulating. However, I've got too many avatars, and that's what it looks like. We've got all these cute little fractals, and they're all compartmentalized, and I can be any number of them. It's a fucking shit show. It's Cirque du Soleil, and I'm exhausted. So there. So what did I do with that? Yeah, it's just like, okay. And this is the conversation that also led me to connecting with you on a deeper level, because I'd always been on the periphery, which I do very well. So I've got all these avatars, but I'm not connected to any groups. On the human physical plane, I'm connected to every group up there. And so started rearranging that field. So I disconnected from my guidance field. I took everything apart, and I kind of went into the inner programs. And I would say there were too many programs running, too many apps running, too many operating systems running for me to know, well, just because it's true for someone else, it doesn't make it true for me. Do I have the courage, the guts to move beyond it and drop in deeper? And then I ask, the cosmos, because it's always the cosmos, for the next step. What is the one next thing that I can do? So a couple of weeks ago, it was go down, turn on your housemate's TV, which has an antenna system that pulls in retrofitted programs from the past. It's the most bizarre thing. I don't know what it is, but it's free. But we don't get live channels. We get programs from the past. It's really like being kind of on a backwards acid trip. So, and it was Medium. So Medium was on, and it was a show where she discovers that she can't go to law school. She's got these gifts, and this gift makes her sensitive and unable to be a lawyer. And yet it opens up the entire spectrum of what else is possible, because the law, she's going to get hired again. Highly unrealistic in a way, and maybe it could happen. But she got hired to be an investigator, a consultant. And it opened up the scheme of, if I wasn't comparing, contrasting, judging myself for being me, I don't even know that enough is it. But what I came away from was, and of course she's got a really cute husband who has a job, and he's good at his job, has kids, and it made the aspect of being a Wi-Fi, a cosmic satellite dish. I questioned how much I could change and not lose touch with what feeds me, where's my life force, and knowing that my intention has been for a long time to create a paradigm shift and create a new human. I can't create fucking goals. I'm sorry, I'm really kind of swearing a lot tonight, but you know, it's just like, I can't go to Tony Robbins. I would probably want to slug him personally. And yet I get that what he's offering is catapulting and catalyzing so many people.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the opposite. I'm going to disconnect from all that. I'm going to go so deep in that I find my way through and out. And I love the colors. I just got to get the lead out, you know, so it can all flow.
I love just like your perspective is always so very different than where I kind of operate from, right? But it's funny that you brought up you at a Tony Robbins event, because I kind of felt myself in between these two kind of realities, right? Of like, I really feel like I'm enough when I connect to myself, to my body. And then I feel like I'm not enough when I go up here. And I play that game of like comparing myself or having expectations for myself, or having expectations for the expectations that you have of me, right? That's a mind trip for me every time. I always have these expectations of how I'm supposed to like be or show up. But then when I'm in my body, I am very receptive to how amazing the apple is, right? Like if I just go and taste the apple, and the apple tree is the most fucking amazing thing ever. And as long as I'm in that moment, it's amazing. So I was very conscious of the fact of like, all these people here are getting this experience, and it's a great experience. It's going to be a great catalyst for a lot of people, but it begins with them not being enough. And it primes them to say yes, and it primes them to say yes to the change that they can potentially make, with the byproduct that then it primes to say yes to whatever the fuck you ask them, right? So the intention may be a good intention. It may be a intention of like, I'm going to help you really shift out of this, and I'm going to teach you how to say yes to you. The byproduct is that while you're saying yes to you, I've primed you so much that you can ask anybody anything there, and they'll say yes. And I shared this with somebody today. I had a conversation there with this girl, and I literally, in the aspect of 5 minutes, we talked about numerous things, and she said yes to everything I said. And mind you, the range of conversation went from Reiki to Airbnbs to ayahuasca ceremonies. Half of those things she didn't know anything about. And Reiki, the only thing she knew is like, it's those pretty stones. I'm like, yes, it's a lot more than that. But she's like, yes. Oh yes, I want to do that. Oh yes, I want to do that. I'm like, holy fuck. The power this thing has. And there are all these people that then like go home and they do thing, and then they're like, I had so much certainty after this event. Why don't I have it anymore? And then they go back. It must be because I'm not enough yet.
Well, the interesting thing after watching that show is I'm going to try, and I'm going to attempt, I'm going to get nudged or elbowed. I actually got seriously elbowed, and you know, grandfather Wachuma hangs out and follows me up and down and around now. We're having a full-on conversation without me doing the plant medicine. He's just hanging out. He's one of my team. And I'm grateful beyond words for that connection. And I also know that that energy, that advice, that elder status is priming me to step into a new capacity. And so I got elbowed by the sense that I'm to share something with my housemate. And it ended up going into, well, oh, that can't apply to you because you're too much. So that's what I wake up to. I live in a place where I'm too much. I'm not allowed to sing. I'm not allowed to create music. I'm not allowed to be who I am. So imagine the irony of setting up, okay, I've got this huge Wi-Fi dish. I have a Shungite grid. I can be who I am. This big, I have a closet that has to fit in a suitcase. And it's like, what are you doing? Is any of this actually, I don't even know what sustainable is. It's not living out of a suitcase. But it's also not having to pay $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment in a town you don't want to be in. So I'm leaving the United States next month. I'm not quite sure where I'm going, but I'm not leaving to escape. I'm asking to be pulled to a piece of land that creates more mana, a more harmonic resonance to the land and the people. And for me, I'm going to get out of the frequency fence of the United States to reboot. The second piece is that I was guided to do an infrared sauna session and met the most spectacular acupuncturist. And I asked her a question. I said, is there any chance that people could be born not only disconnected to their bodies, carrying so much ancestral, shit that they can never find their way out? And is there any chance that the reserves were already tapped when they came in? Please tell me about the secret and hidden acupuncture method and that third extraordinary vessels. Were you trained in that? And she looked at me and she goes, I didn't know it was secret and hidden. And I said, well, nobody seems to know about it. She said, it's an upper level, it's a higher level. Yes, I know about it. I went last Friday and I received, I've never gotten anything from acupuncture. This was the most amazing core integration where everything came out of the field, off the edges, created the core, and my reservoirs were replenished in one session. And she gifted it to me. That's a level of receiving I've never imagined possible, much less been willing to accept. Yeah, that. And it all came from a stupid Groupon coupon. I didn't know the place was 15 minutes away. I decided to use Groupon, did an infrared sauna thing, and met this amazing bridge and mentor. And she's deep. You see, for me, I have to be met in the depth. Intimacy is depth. I don't want someone coming up and saying yes to everything. I'm going to slap them. I don't get it's real. But if that's where you're at, that's fine. Please go into your greatest capacity to show up and then share a fortune cookie quip. I don't care, but show up as that capacity to be the deepest stream you can be. That contributes. And that reservoir then begins to refill. And I'm pretty good at calling myself out on everything. I don't always allow for kindness to come in. So when you guys started offering this group experience and a regular series, I thought, what would it be like to kind of play?
And I mean, I've really appreciated it.
And I was on a radio station today doing an interview, and the woman was talking about being too much, being extra. And really, I think that determining our enough of how we are, our mannerisms, our characteristics, like I'm extra. Renee, you're extra. Wow. Like, right. And that it's okay. And like, for me to show up in those ways and to be the person I am, and like, that's enough. And it's not too much. It's my enough. And if my enough is too much for others, that's not my measurement. That's not my rule. That's not my thing. Right. And
I
think,
love that.
Yeah.
So well said too.
Yeah.
I think as women, like, well, she's a lot. Yeah. Hell yeah. And like, I lean into E a lot. He's been an amazing support for me as like I step into myself. And it's like, how do I be me and not scare everyone away? And typically it's like, it's not about that. It's about being me. And if I'm left standing alone in being me, then that's enough.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
I do in-home sales for my job. And one of the questions that I've been really contemplating is, how do I radically shine who I am and be okay with how people react?
Well, my first question, because I know you, is, are you trying to make impact with your radical shine, or are you simply shining?
I'm trying to make impact, and that's like, that's kind of it's funny that you say that, because that was a thought in my head. It's like, I talked to my coach. I'm like, basically I said, Coach, I'm struggling with sharing my goals here, man. Like, can you help me out? And it was like, I'm trying to, I had this thought, I don't know what to go from here or where it's going to go next, but I had this thought of like, how do I share my goals so impactfully inspirational that like I change this person's life some way, somehow, but also they want to buy some knives from me, and the amount is not up to me to decide, it's up to them. But how do I make it all happen through sharing my goals? And not really sure why you asked that, Rhonda, but
well,
but
because
yeah.
I coach someone else from your inside company, right? And like, they said that when they stopped showing up and trying to make an impact, because like that word for me does not resonate. Like, I don't want your impact.
Now, also because to me, impact is, it's you, if you're aiming for impact, you're aiming for significance. If you're not aiming for impact and you're just aiming to show up, and again, the byproduct is impact, that's impact. But if your goal is impact, it's actually significance that you're after, or at least that's how I see it. Like, that's how I feel it.
And I said this at the last ceremony, like, when someone wants me to give me their impact, you want to impact me, it's like you hit me in the face with your dick. I do not want to be hit in the face with your dick. I don't
know anybody that
I have
does. Like,
absolutely no desire for your impact, right? So like, if you just show up and you're awesome and you're comfortable and you're grounded and you're confident and you're friendly and it's easy, I'm gonna buy something from you. But if you come in and you're like, you know, trying to impact me right across the fucking forehead with your dick, like, I don't want that. And like, nobody wants that. And like, your organization is high in impact. And like, I can't even gag that part down. And like, that's not who you are. Lean back. Right? Just be you and lean back. You can talk to anybody about anything in the whole world. Engage, connect, communicate, and don't do it in some stupid acronym.
no, just listen.
And I know your acronym. I know your company very well. So don't engage in your acronym. Simply just go be you and like find something interesting about that person and like go be you, and you're gonna hit your sales.
The funny thing is this conversation is kind of, when is enough enough? And I had some real revelations with my company where it's like, I want to detach away from all that a little bit, because it's become enough. Like, my whole life in the last 3 years, kind of, I felt, right, like in hindsight, is like constantly like, hey, you have to get out there and do, you have to get out there and do, and you have to get out there and do. And then when I would talk to my manager, who's kind of like a mentor in our company, and that's the way it's structured, you know, it always revolves around, well, hey, if you just get out there and sell more or recruit more, you're going to create more impact. And that's what you want, right? You want to create impact, right? I'm like, yeah, I want to change lives.
Yes, or yes.
And now it's like, I'm kind of getting frustrated, and like, I find myself saying, just leave me alone. Like, I just want to be for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what's next, but I know being is a part of it.
Yeah, but that's
whatever that looks like.
That's why I've been part of multiple masterminds, and that was the same reason why I left all those masterminds. because I realized that in every interaction, however I showed up, no matter how good I felt in that moment, wasn't enough. There was always like, well, what's the next thing? I was like, I don't fucking know. I'm really enjoying this moment. Like, yeah, but if you're not growing, you're dying, right? I don't fucking know. Like, does a plant grow 24/7, 365? It doesn't. It has moments of growth and it chills, and a moment of growth and then it chills. And then it's literally like millimeters of growth and maybe centimeters of growth for years. And then a plant just gets to the point, it's like, okay, I'm done. And we're the only humans, we're the only beings on this planet. They're like, can I grow more than this? And the universe is like, no, you're fully grown. It's like, but like, seriously, can I grow a little bit more? No, you're done. Okay, I'm gonna try to grow a little bit more. And then we
I'll hack my way into it. I'm gonna do whatever I can to hack,
whatever I can.
to take a hatchet and hack our body into forming it into something we think we need to be, rather than allowing it to be what it is. And you know, as women, like, I have tried to hack my damn body into being thinner and firmer, and my boobies looking better, and my booty looking better, and my hair looking better, and it's all this fucking work. And like, when you finally like love yourself, when you're finally in your body, and you're like, E always uses this term, feeling myself or feeling yourself, right? Like, when I'm finally feeling myself, I don't have to do all those things. I can love me with my squishiness, and like, I love me with my juiciness. I can love me in my pieces, and like, wow, then what? Then I can just go be active because I want to be active, and I can eat really good food because I want to be really good. And it's like, I'm not trying to get to this like, in the mind of who I need to be enough. Fuck that. I'm enough. We're enough. And you got to claim it, right? Like, you got to claim it's enough. And we don't gotta do anything. We have the opportunity and the choice to choose something different for ourselves if we want to. This is the time to rewrite the script. This is the time to say, I'm not going to walk in and hit everyone in the face with my dick. And you know what? There are still moments when I do it. And there's a lot of moments when I don't.
But you also apologize now.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I am a cunt. And like, I can say this word on this call because it's our call, but like, there's times I'm a cunt, and like, there's days I wake up and I'm like, I'm super cunty today, everybody. And they're like, okay, cool. Like, we got it. And then there's times when I just blast off something and it's like super sharp, and I can see you go, oh, you're killing me. And I'm learning how to tune my truth and my enough and my things into this like less, right? So that it's not so, impactful. Yeah.
Well, the framework shifted this week into violence and how violent the English language. None of my products have any English in them other than my DVDs. My sound, everything comes through in another language. English, especially if it's not brought through, is a violent language. We're hacking, we're impacting. I learned how to be a cut your dick off person, by the way. I was great at eviscerating. And I didn't care if it was a real dick, a fake dick, a plastic dick. If you had just ordered it, I didn't care. It was coming off. Okay, and everyone felt great. All the women around me that weren't willing to stand up for themselves loved
the dick cutting,
because I was their personal bodyguard. I had one-liners up the wazoo, and I could just, with one swoop, go. Whop. And then what? Then you're going to spend a certain amount of time feeling bad, similar to what you said, and attempting to recapitulate a scene as though what you did was wrong. And it was overcompensation for the fact that you were hanging out with people that were weak, that were relying upon you and perhaps making you a shield. And to me, that's a violent group strategy. It's really, and what if the terror that was running in my field would have been addressed sooner had I been willing to just say what I just said and say, you know what, that feels violent to me. I feel violated, and that's a violent. And I mean, it's kind of, I mean, it was embarrassing up to about a week ago. It's like, I don't care, I got there. I mean, 62 years, who cares? You're still here. You've got a bet with the sea turtles, 156 and a half. Who knows? However, I started to imagine what my life would be like if it wasn't being directed through all of this self-violating and violence.
And this
And you're there.
masculinity, right? Like all this language, it's super masculine. And I realize, like, you know what I mean? Like, I realize even in the way that, like, we want to, like, this idea of, like, you gotta shake somebody up, and your way to shake somebody up is for you to say something that is, like, violent or, like, taboo or, like, or break their pattern. And there is no, like, that's never, like, you're gonna shock people into doing things, and then you're just moving them from trauma to trauma, and they never have a chance of, like, come to themselves. So as always, this conversation kind of spiral into all types of things, and I deeply enjoy them. But as always, I also want to be respectful of everybody's time. It is 8:01 to 9 my time. So I don't know if there's any parting thoughts. So I was listening to a Bob Marley song today, and it says something like, "Fear is my only courage." And I've heard that song millions of times, and I never heard that specific sentence, right? Or maybe I heard it and never understood it. But to me, like, being enough and feeling that you are enough can be super scary. Yet that level of fear is the only courage that we have. Because if you're going to go out there and continuously change who you are to feel that you're enough, then you're never going to be enough. So the moment that you are able to be enough with all of your fears, and with all those fears, you still show up as that enough that you are at that moment, that's courage, right? And you go, you enjoy the beach, even if you don't feel super, super sexy, or you go, you know, and you go do the thing, or you go have the self goal, even if you're like, I don't feel hot today. Like, I don't feel great today. Like, I can't get two words. I can't say two words in a row that make sense. And you're just like, okay, I'm enough. I'm enough today, the way I am. And I'm just going to have the courage.
Yeah, the courage to live with no fucks given.
Yeah.
Right?
Cut and dicks off. No fucks given.
No fucks given.
So hopefully you didn't walk into this moment of the conversation. If you did, we did not just talk about this. You can go backwards. There's a lot of nice things that we talked about before we got to this point.
And the face of the dick. So what else?
Yeah.
That downward spiral.
But yeah, so I just wanted to, like, open the floor for a couple more minutes if there's anybody that has any parting kind of thoughts. And as always, share my gratitude and appreciation for everybody that is here. And Jesse, that we lost him, but
yeah, I just want to say thank you. And one thing that really, when you started talking about how going to all the classes, like, to make sure you were enough, it really hit on me, because I was like, oh, that's totally what I did, like, for years, is, well, if I take this one more class, I'll be good enough to do this, or people will be respected enough to do that. But I loved how Jesse said that, you know, to have that balance of, okay, fine, if you do an hour of learning, or an hour of a class, or an hour of whatever, to go back and spend an hour or 4 hours, whatever, of implementing, because that's huge, because nothing ever gets done and nothing ever gets integrated if you don't do that piece. It's one of the reasons I love Rhonda's coaching, or even combo, or any of those things, is because she always has that time to spend talking about that integration piece, and, like, how are you going to put it into play, and what changes are you going to make. So I think that's really, really important for me. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think integration is everything. Integration is everything. It's less than, you know, like, I've had people reach out and ask if, like, they should sit in medicine, right? Like, and I'm just like, you know, like, I don't really think medicine isn't for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. It's listen, it's already here. You are the medicine. We are the medicine in whatever shape or form. Listen, it's already present, and then learn how to integrate it. And, like, listen, we're past the point where we were a year ago. things are very different. We have a different connection now. Like we don't have to do things the same. And everything that we do in this community and with what we're getting ready to launch with Inner Circle is deprogramming. We are deprogramming, we are cleaning, we are detoxing, we are unlearning things about how to then to listen, and all this personal development I know got us to a point, but we are full.
Overflowing, man.
Overflowing. Too much.
Also, because no joke, it's a business.
Yep.
Which is the same thing that is like that we talked about. What comes next after personal development? Like the industry has non-stop growing, and to me, that's the first kind of thing that should point out that the industry doesn't really work. Because if an industry that is based on personal development, if people truly did develop, the industry will maybe stay the same or shrink.
Mm-hmm.
The industry keeps growing, people are not getting out of it, more people are getting in it.
Well, then there's significance in like doing Tony Robbins Platinum, and I worked with a who, like, her friend, she's like, my friends just do it every year. It's $150,000 a year program, and they do it every year. And I'm like, what, like that's not working.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Well, they get a very nice hat.
A hat?
You're very
A hat.
$100,000 hat, huh?
$100,000. No.
It's very unique, and you can only get it.
And listen, if you're a person that watches this and you've done Tony Robbins Platinum and you
we still love you. Like, we're not giving you shit.
Love you. And like, we're not like, we are also finding what works for us and what's enough for us and like what doesn't work. And he went to this conference and I was really pleased to see how it was going to be. We stayed in contact while he was there, and he's like, the first thing, I'm just going to share a little bit. The first thing was like, there's all this sacred geometry flashing on the screens, which the average person doesn't even know. And he like sent me videos, incredible. And they're literally programming people with stuff. Like they had no idea what was happening. Like all this flashing, incredibly intense, like all just priming them to buy more, do more, say yes, be part of this whole thing. And like, and then he's like, but there's some good content here. And I had to listen with all my skepticism and all my shit. I had to listen.
And same, I mean, I was sitting there being like, okay, I got to listen. Because that's also the other side of this coin, is always being humble, that we're always learning, not from a place of changing whatever we're enough or not, but also being humble and like not being, I know, now I know. Because you don't know.
We don't know. There's information everywhere.
Yeah.
So, I want to encourage everybody that's listening to this call and people on the call, like, right now is really the time, and Renee, you're totally not going to hear this, is for you to understand what next year looks like. And like, when I say we plant a cosmic seed of what we think is going to happen, and then we let it go. Like, we're not so focused in the goal driven, like, right? And like, how you want to live your days, how many yoga classes do you want to do? Plan your vacations first, do all that first in your year. But really understanding what is it that you need, because this is the year of really eliminating and like finding out what's enough for you. And this month specifically is all about you being selfish and in your own need, and stepping back from all the responsibility of everybody else and really understanding your own need versus your own want. And in between there somewhere is your enough. And
maybe next year, at the end of the year, what will your enough look like? Really like plan it. Like, as you're planning your year, if by next year I've gotten to this point, that's enough. That's good enough for me.
Well, what if enough isn't in the program? Come on, I'm going to be the cosmic broadcaster and say, you know what? Just dissolve it. Enough isn't even real. It's a program, right? So for deprogramming, can you imagine not even using that as a reference point?
Yeah, and just being.
Yeah. I hear you, but again, at the same time, we're dealing with an enormous amount of people that still need language.
Right.
So, and I hear that, and I very much hear and respect that. But to be honest, like, we can't go forward with where we're at. Right. Like, humanity has to sit in our shit. We have to look at the truth of what's happening. We have to see that we're in end times. We have to understand these pieces. And again, we don't have to look at the word end times as end times, because there's no such thing as an end, and there's no such thing as a beginning, right? Like it just continually, perpetually just is different, right? But I think that we have so much disconnect that we have to be able to instill this word and use a word right now for people to even understand, like, shit, enough, right? And then again, you know, go on and not even need to identify completely. But I just don't think we're there.
I would say it depends on where you're going to focus your niche. In the medicine spectrum, there's a mixed group right now. I certainly know the medicine shifted. I know that I'm living in a state where people are abusing it, and I have no interest in staying in Colorado because most people are moving here to abuse mushrooms and Pacalolo. And they're making a lot of money, so they've turned it into an industry and a business. And not everyone is. To me, when the framework is being and becoming, enough dissolves. If someone wants to run the enough program, how can they repattern it? What is the not enough plugin? Can they undo that? Can they replace it without it becoming another addictive? Yeah, and that's really, yeah, I get it, because it becomes another addiction.
It does. And then it's like, no, I'm just going to focus on this. I'm going to live my life for enough. And then it's just another hyper focus. It's another thing. But it's like, we got to pull the conversations into these, like, which is, we're fucked and we have way too much stuff. And we all are living for this dream that doesn't really exist. So we need to talk about this enough part. Then we can talk about, how do we program that? Like, what is actually that piece? Because it doesn't matter what the hell I create or do, like, I'm still going to have this empty cavern inside. So maybe that endless need in me, that needing something to fill it, or figuring out, or less stuff. Maybe it's getting rid of stuff that will help me now. No, it's learning to live with the void, whatever it is, and being present with the fact that, oh, wow, this is my reality. It's not to be changed. It's not to be modified. It's not to be added to or taken away from. It simply is. Then what, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really, that's scary for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Breathing. I mean, the first thing I have to do is remind myself to breathe. You just said it, and I just had to, it's like, okay, breathe.
Oh, I can do
Yeah,
that.
I just took a deep breath too.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
You're just like,
And
shit.
we're training in Bufo Toad right now, and the one thing that happens in this medicine is that people forget to breathe.
Wow.
Think about that. We're working with God consciousness and whatever that means for people, and people don't remember to breathe. So you have to remind them periodically throughout the ceremony to breathe, to take a breath. Oh yeah, I can breathe. And if you think about when we push a door, when we go to push a heavy door, we hold our breath.
Yeah.
Breathe. Breathe, fucking breathe.
Fucking breathe.
Fucking breathe.
So, okay, 9/11, we went a couple minutes over, but I really appreciate you guys. And thank you guys for watching. And then once again, this was another one of our master calls. If you sign up for the email list, you can get all the past ones as well and get these ones sent over to you. And you also get an invite with the link. So if you want to come and participate on the call, you can do that as well. We would love to have more people so we can tap into more levels of what does reality look like for you.
And we are creating incredible content for you guys right now, like absolutely really neat, amazing guides and amazing things to help you figure out your way. And it's all, again, us holding the light for you to figure out your own shadow and your own dark. And Jonathan's doing an amazing book club. We're reading Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a really beautiful expression of community this month. So if you want to check us out and you happen to see this, I think we'll try and share it out into the world differently, so we can get some more interaction. But don't be shy. And Carrie and Renee, you guys are like our superheroes, big fat gold stars. Not that you need them, but spiritual gold stars for always like showing up. And
yeah.
Thank you.
You know you're enough already, but just in case you don't.
You're like, I don't have to run that program, right? So and having the conversation to teach people that they don't have to run that program. So
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys. Love you.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you
All
guys.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.